So Modulo is a comprehensive support system for families learning from home. We believe that education is not just academic, but it's about social development, emotional development, and academic development. And that really is done best if the whole family participates in the child's learning. So personalized learning, that means that every child's curriculum is personalized for them. It's always evolving and changing. We give daily lesson plans that are really based on child's interests, their passions, if they have any special needs, if they're gifted. No child's curriculum looks alike. Social interaction happens through our kids club. It also happens through our online group. We really want to create meaningful social interaction for kids online. And then finally, we are really working to create a healthy relationship between you and your child's teacher, because having a role model for children is so important. Someone who's outside their family circle, someone who your child can build a healthy connection with. So that bond is really important and one that we're looking to develop. And then finally, family education. So really supporting you through this whole education, through your child's social, emotional, and academic development, so you can feel confident and you can feel happy and really enjoy the process and learn along with your child. So here is how it works. When you join Modulo, if you join, the first thing we'll do is a very thorough onboarding with you and your child to kind of figure out what are your child's gifts, what are their challenges, do they know how to read or not, do they like videos, do they prefer nature and art? So we can really recommend curriculum that they're gonna love doing. And the initial curriculum we recommend is absolutely not set in stone. It's gonna change all the time. We're gonna be constantly tinkering it to make sure that your child likes their lessons, that they're learning, that it's the right fit for them. And then Kids Club is, right now, Kids Club is our online meetups. That's twice a week with Alexis. It's very short. We're probably gonna only have sessions that are 30 to 45 minutes long because kids tend to get bored after staring at the screen for too long. Kids Club is, so one of the things we're doing is we're kind of compartmentalizing academics and social interaction. One of the challenges, I think, with the way schools are doing online learning right now is that they're trying to teach academic subjects online instead of really just using that time to help kids interact socially. So our Kids Club might be a conversation about Black Lives Matter or kids' concerns about health, or it might just be a check-in where we go around and everyone says, red, yellow, or green, depending on their mood that day, and can kind of talk about how they're feeling and why, or a show and tell. It's really an opportunity to teach, to give kids space to connect, share what they're feeling, and learn how to converse skillfully with each other. So for example, if a controversial political topic comes up, we can help kids learn to be compassionate listeners and communicate. And then we also have teacher check-ins. I addressed that a little bit already. So at least once a week, your child is going to have the opportunity to check in with their teacher. Teacher can see how they're doing with their curriculum, if they like it, if they need to change anything. Maybe one day your kid is just going to want to talk about their passion for birds and how they want to learn about ornithology. Kids love sharing things that they're passionate about with their teacher. So Alexis is such a wonderful role model, and as our program grows, we really want to find more teachers like Alexis who can become your child's friend. And as we think about socialization, a relationship with one person goes so far in teaching your child to build healthy social attachments. It doesn't have to be a huge group. Those one-on-one interactions with your teacher, it's going to be really important for that aspect of your child's development as well. And then holistic assessment. So depending on your child's age, probably once a quarter or twice a year, we'll do assessments with them. And these assessments are designed to see where their strengths are, where their weaknesses are, and adjust their curriculum accordingly. I know that a lot of you have different goals when it comes to your child's education. Some of your goals is that you want your kid to go back to school as soon as it opens, and you want to make sure they're not behind. So in that case, we're really going to be looking to make sure that your kids' progress is aligned with state standards so they can feel confident if they return to school. Some of you don't care at all about state standards and you just want to make sure that your children are engaged in learning. That's also what we're going to be measuring for. Some kids are going to hate math, and we're going to identify that in the assessments and try to figure out ways we can make math more fun for them. A lot of times kids have resistance to different subjects, and part of teaching is figuring out what's causing that resistance and how we can overcome it by either changing the way they learn or introducing a new context. Maybe a kid hates math, but they love basketball, and we can teach math in a basketball-like way. I actually got good at math building my first startup because I had to build spreadsheets and financial models. And it was amazing that a financial model could actually become something fun for me to do, because if it was serving a cause I was passionate about. And then the parenting workshops, which I'm incredibly excited about. We've actually been offering a lot of parenting workshops this summer. I think a big turning point for me was the Black Lives Matter movement rising again. I just felt like I reached a tipping point where I couldn't handle the stress of this situation anymore. And I felt like something had to be done. And we started inviting really experienced teachers to give workshops on talking to kids about racism, giving workshops to kids about racism. And that just gave me personally participating in this workshop so much more hope and confidence, feeling like these kids were learning about this issue and we were able to do something. Deb also recently gave a wonderful workshop on staying connected, where she talked to parents about how to open your social circle safely and how to create meaningful social interactions during the quarantine. So we're doing these kind of workshops all the time. We had another one on emotional wellness, and we're going to really offer the workshops based on the needs we're seeing arise in our community. And then finally, expert support. When you're learning from home for the first time, and if you're learning in school, there's such a huge need for support. Every family needs a community. The nuclear family is not how our society originally was. People need a village. It's a cheesy expression, but true. So when you're part of this program, we're available to you all the time, by phone, by email, by chat, whatever comes up for you. We are here to hold your hand and support you in your child's learning. So I just want to address a little bit about how we choose curriculum. So over the last several months, I have been working with about 25 volunteers, educators, technologists, teachers, grad students, on combing through every secular homeschooling curriculum available and trying to find ones that, first of all, are accurate, share accurate information. Secondly, are secular. So we don't recommend any religious curriculum. I love religions, but that we feel is really something in the family domain, not our domain. And also curriculum that's easy to follow. So when we meet with your child, we're going to try to figure out, what do they love? What are they passionate about? How do they best learn? Children have so many different types of intelligences. Some children learn best when they're growing plants, and there's nature-based curriculum for them. Some parents do not want their kids to have any screen time. There's curriculum for that. Some kids love video games. You can build an entire curriculum based around video games. Your child can play video games all day if you feel comfortable with that. So there's really curriculum for every child. Some of these curriculums are incredible, and we're really excited to share them with you because there's not a lot of knowledge about what's available. And then the last thing that's really important is that they're very easy to follow. So all of our curriculum is mastery-based. If you're not familiar with mastery-based learning, essentially what it is that children need to master one concept before they move on to the next. And so often that looks like one-on-one tutoring or independent study. And all of our curriculum is designed not to kind of have random concepts thrown at a child, but they learn one concept and that allows them to move on to the next concept. And the first concept provides the foundation for the next concept. And so the reason it's really hard to do mastery learning in a classroom setting effectively, because essentially when you have a group of students, they all have to wait until the entire class has mastered the concept before they move forward. So if a child is learning one concept really quickly, they're kind of stuck before they can go ahead. If they're learning it more slowly, the class might move on without them, and then they get lost. And that's why we see a lot of children in the education system falling 2 or 3 or 4 years behind, because they missed one concept and then they basically tuned out for the rest of the semester. So that's mastery learning. We can go into it in a little more depth. I can also share some articles with you about it, but it's an incredibly efficient way to learn. And that's why generally with this kind of system, your child will probably need to spend about an hour a day studying, maybe 2. And all of our curriculum is designed so they can do it an hour a day if they feel good about doing it an hour a day, or they can do it for 11 hours at a time. Eric, who's here, has a 6-year-old, and when he first got his Right Start math book, he just spent 11 hours on his math book, and we really want to allow time for that as well. So children are never waiting to learn. They're always learning at their own pace. So that's our curriculum. And also, we don't develop our own curriculum. We're using things that are already available. So what does this look like? So I like to say no homeschooler schedule ever looks alike. We're going to help you build a schedule that works best for your family. But this is kind of just a little taste about what a schedule might look like. So your child will wake up in the morning and probably have breakfast if they're a breakfast person. And then, you know, sometimes I find that I study really well in the morning. So if your child studies well in the morning, you might sit them down or go outside if you have a very active nature-based curriculum, or hand them their little iPad if they're doing Khan Academy, Khan App Kids, and just say, okay, this is our time for study. And they'll do their lessons for an hour or 2. And that is more than enough to keep them at or above what they would be learning in school. I've talked to hundreds of homeschoolers, and almost none of them spend more than an hour or 2 a day in formal study. It's really enough. Again, like when you're in a classroom setting, a lot is like waiting for other kids to catch up. As a teacher, I spent so much time managing behavior, I could barely get in a lesson, but this is just your child's time to study. A good analogy is you think of when you're doing your own work. I mean, I find that I can really be focused for maybe 2 or 3 hours at a time and get really solid, good work done if I can. So that's kind of what the structured study time is. And then we like to leave a ton of time for self-directed learning and play. Children have an intrinsic motivation, an intrinsic desire to learn. There's so much you can do if you leave them to their own devices. So I like to take our 3-year-old outside for many, many hours a day. I find being outside is really good for him, and he can just entertain himself forever. We race, we play hide and go seek. And then you'll have dinner, and then, you know, after dinner might be family time. So this might be a time of day where you give your child a reading lesson or read them an educational bedtime story. We have one curriculum that's all focused on educational bedtime stories and podcasts you can play in the car when you're going on errands. So there's really a way anybody can fit this in. My favorite thing to do with a 3-year-old, every single night we count to 100. We count 100 sheep. And this is the way I'm teaching him to count. He's about up to 4 now, but I really have confidence we're gonna get there. And then once a week or so, your child will check in with their teacher. They're welcome to check in more than that if they want as well. And then I just want to emphasize that all of this can change. We really want to keep a program that's open and there to meet your needs, not something that's set in stone. And then the last thing I want to address before we kind of open it up to discussion is your role in your child's learning. So, and a lot of you here have younger kids, but I know that many of you have been trying to do remote learning with your school, and it's been really hard. You've been studying like 4 or 5 or 6 hours a day with your child, trying them, you know, to get them to do these math worksheets. They refuse to do it. They fight with you. Some of the smart ones among you have given up altogether. Others have tried to keep it going. That is not what this is. You, as your child's teacher, you're going to be learning with your child. You're going to be guiding your children's learning. You're going to be engaging with them in activities that are fun for them and enjoyable. But I do want to say that parent participation in learning is important. Studies have shown that almost no other factor makes a bigger difference in a child's success than their parent participating in some way in their learning. And most of those studies have been done around parents who help with homework. So you're your child's first teacher, their first role model, and engaging with them, whether it's helping them with math or just having a conversation with them. And maybe they say, you know, why is the sky blue? And you say, actually, I'm not sure. Let's go to Google and check it out together. It's really important that you learn with your child. And that's mostly what you're going to be doing. You don't have to be a teacher. You can just learn with them. And maybe they're even going to teach you too while they're learning. And it can be an absolute joy. I mean, some families are here today. They've joined us to talk about their own experience. They just love learning with their kids, and they're part of this big learning community. They're constantly learning new things. It's really an enriching and natural process to be engaged with your child. And it doesn't have to take a lot of time. I mean, literally, it can be 20 minutes a day where you just read a bedtime story to your child, or kind of get them started on whatever daily lesson plan we suggested for them. It can be very short and very easy, because we're not forcing them to do all the same worksheet that their class is assigned, that they don't see the meaning of. It's more fun for them to do this kind of work. I think one of the biggest obstacles that parents have had is that their children don't really understand the sense of the assignments they're being given. And, you know, kind of just starting there, it's like, what is the meaning of this work? How is it meaningful to you? Will motivate kids. So we'll talk a little more about parent participation and learning, but I think it's something our whole team is really passionate and excited about as part of this process. So that's the end of the slideshow presentation. I'd love to open it up for questions, unless anyone on the team had something they wanted to chime in with and add before we do Q&A. Cool. All right, let's open it up to questions. So if you have a question, just feel free to unmute yourself, and hopefully we can answer it or give you more questions to think about.
I have a question.
Great.
Can you talk
Melanie.
a little bit? Hi, I'm Melanie.
Hi, Melanie.
So can you talk a little bit more about how the groups, the social groups, is it the kids club?
Yes.
Like, how do you group kids, and is that a constant, like, do people sign up for this for the whole school year, or is it month to month? And what about continuity, all that?
Thank you so much. I didn't even talk about that, so that's important. So Modulo is a subscription-based program. You pay monthly. You can do it all year round. You can stop at any time. You can start at any time. If you start it and you don't like it, we'll give you a full refund. So it's really ongoing. You just stop and start whenever you want. Our plan for Kids Club at the minimum is kids will meet up twice a week with children of similar ages. So our plan is to group the children somewhat Montessori style, where you have pre-K and kindergarten together, ages 6 to 9 together, 9 to 12, and preteens and olders. It's really nice to have some difference in age groups, so younger children can learn from older children can teach younger children. But that's the plan. I know that some people want to do this with a group of friends, so we're going to take that into consideration. If there's 10 kids who want to be in the same group, we can make that happen. And then there's going to be a lot of, we're creating a Slack group for the kids so they can communicate with each other, what we call asynchronously. It's a term I only recently learned, but that means kind of outside of the formal meetup time. So if they want to connect, do a FaceTime, you know, with another kid or something like that. And then hopefully we'll also have some breakouts for interest groups. So for example, like Christine's creative writing class is a really great example of that. It's for middle schoolers right now, and they can do creative writing class. If there's a group of kids that are really passionate about Minecraft, we can create a Minecraft group. So we're really hoping to create a lot of different interest groups based on kids' interests, if that helps. Oh, and I did want to add one more thing, which is that for the pre-K group, the meetups are going to be parent accompanied. So we think it's really helpful, if, especially at that age group, if parents can be involved in that. We sometimes might have the kids on their own, but mostly parent-child classes. And then that also brings a really good point, which I didn't really talk about, which is what are we not? So what we are is a support system for parents. We're really committed to helping your children reach academic milestones, support them meaningful social interactions, and give you support. But we're not an online school. So you would have to register as a homeschooler, and we're not, and your child is doing their lessons independently. If they need tutoring, we're here for them, absolutely, but it's not a situation where they're going to be sitting there and we're going to be teaching them a lesson. And we also are not entertainment. So we're really trying to engage your children in their learning. And unfortunately, we're not childcare. I mean, I think to do this program effectively, you really do need to have a parent who is a stay-at-home parent. You can maybe get 2 or 3 hours of work done a day if your child is a bit older. We can help you construct time for that, or you're going to need a caregiver. And this program is very easy for a caregiver to follow. And we also are planning to involve caregivers in our parent education classes. But it will be very difficult to do if you are both working full time. There needs to be someone who's engaged in the childcare piece. And that said, I really want to acknowledge what a huge crisis we're in terms of childcare. It's totally, I can't even find the words for how horrible a situation parents are in terms of childcare. And so we feel bad that we can't provide that piece to you, but to give your child the best educational experience, we feel like we need to keep it separate. That said, any parent who's struggling financially, who doesn't know how to do this, can't afford a childcare, I will talk to you for hours and see what we can do to help find a solution for you, whether that's teaming up with another family, whether it's getting support financially, whether it's changing your career path. There's a lot of really great jobs for homeschooling parents that I can walk you through. So we're not childcare, but I want to help support you in that if we can. Does that answer your question?
Manisha, we've got a question in the chat
Oh,
from
great.
Melanie. She's asking, can an older child, age 9, join the social group kids club without a parent while I'm working from home?
Yes, absolutely. So for any kid who's kindergarten and up, the social group does not require a parent. It's just the preschoolers. Okay. Yeah, thanks for asking that.
Sure.
And it also depends on the preschool group. You might have some sessions without a parent, but all kindergarten and up is all without a parent, and same for electives as well.
And then so for the scheduling for, obviously I'm just trying to figure out if it would work for our family. Like for a teacher meeting, would that be during the day, or is there?
We'll work with you. So we'll schedule at a time that's convenient for you.
Okay.
Other questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I do.
Hi.
Hi.
Laura, nice to meet you.
One of my biggest challenges with the homeschool when it went into effect last March was I have 2, a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old, one in preschool and one in first grade. And they were in different schools because preschool's private and first grade. I couldn't coordinate their schedules, and I'm a single parent. So I was just going nuts trying to do a Zoom with a preschooler and then do academics with my first grader. And how does that work when you have more than one child?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. So I think the first part of this that's important to acknowledge is that the way that remote learning has been happening at school does not work for a lot of families, just because of the amount of time it requires from you and the amount of scheduling that might not work for you. So first of all, we are going to work with your family to find good times for your preschooler to be studying and or in their social group, and for your other child to be in their social group. And we also know that some families have multiple devices for learning, others do not. And so that's also a factor that goes into scheduling. In terms of, it's an interesting issue having children at different developmental ages and trying to teach them at the same time. The preschooler probably demands a lot more of your attention, which can be frustrating for the older child, or the vice versa. I'm not sure, don't want to jump to conclusions, but I think that it can be nice to have a study time for the family, like create kind of a nice, what's the word that I'm looking for? Kind of like a boundary around the study time where we're all sitting together and studying, but a lot of the learning can be done independently. So it's not a kind of situation where you're standing at a blackboard trying to teach a preschool lesson and then teach another lesson. You're kind of getting your kids started, getting them going, and they'll do a lot of the work independently. Do we have any homeschoolers today who have 2 kids who might want to address this? I know that, I don't know who's still here.
Sarah, raised her hand.
Yeah, great.
Can you hear me?
2 wonderful kids. And Tara is an amazing entrepreneur and friend and has been an advisor to Modulo from day one and really instrumental in helping us shape the program. So thanks for being here.
Happy and looking forward to being part of it. Yeah. So Laura, as you were sharing, I was thinking, so we've been homeschooling parents for about a year and a half now. So prior to the pandemic, and our kids are 6.5 and 3.5. And what I would say is once you're kind of in the mode of homeschooling and thinking about learning as integrated with your whole life, there's a lot of things that can get easier about having 2 kids. So for example, like if we're doing a cooking project, that might involve some math for my 6.5-year-old, but it just is a tactile experience for the 3.5-year-old, so I'm talking to him about measurements and the numbers and how do we double this recipe or whatever. And, she's into the stirring. Or sometimes now, like he'll get his reading practice by reading her a story. So there's a lot you can integrate into daily life and kind of have each child interacting with an activity in a different way. And it's just a lot more efficient. Like it really is true. What Manish is saying is true for us, and it's true for every homeschooling parent I've met, that the academic work does not need to be more than an hour or 2 a day. So in a way, you only have to think about, okay, what am I doing with the 4-year-old during that 1 or 2 hours of focus time for the older one?
Awesome. That was such a great answer, Tara. Thank you.
When I start to work with one, the other one immediately wants my attention.
And I can help with that, with the parent workshops about how to balance and support parents. Yeah, that's a big challenge, but giving you some little tools in your toolkit and scripts can help, and we'll help you with that too. And I see Manisha's been in the chat box answering a question from Jeremy that I think would be great to share with the whole group.
Yes, so wonderful. So Jeremy asked what time zones we support, and this is a new program, so we're just starting to form our groups in different areas, but we have been hosting workshops for families and kids. Deb just did an awesome workshop on undoing white supremacy, and we had families from I think 9 different countries come to that workshop. So we're excited to support multiple time zones and multiple languages. Our team is based in the Bay Area and New York City. So we have a lot of experience scheduling things at different times. Some of it depends on the interest we get in different areas. We've had a lot of interest from San Francisco and from New York as well. So those are kind of the main groups. But so it really depends if we can also get enough kids in that time zone to support your family. And I should just say also, I was a bilingual sub and also started a foreign language school in my past, and I am really passionate about bilingual education. So we're also helping to get some bilingual groups going. And if there's any languages you'd like to see, please let me know, because that would be really exciting for us.
I'd like to add to that, we're in the middle of planning to schedule a version of the Undoing White Supremacy workshop in Spanish for Spanish-speaking families, because we know that there's a whole bunch of people out there who don't have access if it's in English, and we really want to give access all around, especially in this time where we're becoming more aware of the barriers. Right?
Absolutely.
I think Michael had his hand up.
Oh, Michael, thank you. Hi, Michael.
Hi. So kind of going back to a point you made when you were speaking to what Modulo is not, it sounds, I guess if I'm hearing things correctly, it sounds like the primary offering here is an environment or a context in which both parents and children have the opportunity to be supported in thinking through and developing what the not only the home environment needs to be to have an effective child interest-based approach to it, but also it sounds like there's, like with the parent-teacher support type thing, there's the initiative to help integrate or engage the parent into that learning process. So it's less of the parent having to be the one that's always like, okay, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do that. Kind of like in the typical teacher role, but in more of a facilitator role. Is kind of like what I'm hearing is that more than anything, all of this is based on the child's curiosity and interest, and that the parent and the services that Modulo offers is there as facilitation of fleshing out what that child's interest is in a very tactical process of learning. Is that I guess a correct way to frame this?
That's a beautiful way of framing this. Thank you. And I think that one thing I want to make sure of is that people don't feel like this is going to be very labor intensive for them. So, you know, what this kind of looks like is that we meet with your child, we meet with you, we figure out what's your lifestyle like? How much do you want to be involved in teaching your child, if at all? And give you curriculum that works well for that, where we want to take responsibility for making sure that your child is on track academically, socially, and emotionally, and find a way that works for them and your family to do that. So that's why we give them the personalized curriculum, but we're not taskmasters, and we don't want you to be taskmasters either. We really want to find curriculum that your child is excited to do. And through the peer interactions are a great way to encourage your children to stay on track academically and maybe get ahead on subjects they might not like as much. And then also their relationship with their teacher. So that's why it's a combination of this kind of short structured study time with lessons that we recommend and a lot of unstructured time, and then just a lot of check-ins to make sure to see how they are and how you are. So it can be a good experience for all of you, but we really do embrace self-directed learning. There's kind of a view, I think, in the majority of our education system that if we left children to their own devices, they wouldn't learn anything. And there's a lot of fear around children not learning things. I think parents feel a lot of guilt, like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna fail my child if they don't learn this math concept. And what we forget is that children are biologically programmed to learn, and they are going to learn. They're excited about learning. They wanna know about the world. That's how they're wired. So we can encourage that process instead of killing their love of learning by forcing them to do stuff that they don't want to do. But I have extraordinary confidence in the child's innate desire and ability to learn. I think at this point, I've taught probably over 2,000 children, ages pre-K to 12 in multiple countries. And as a tutor, I worked with a lot of kids who the parents said they're unmotivated, they don't like learning. What's the word that they use a lot? Just lazy. A lot of parents told me their children were lazy, and I have yet to meet a lazy child. A child who's lazy is blocked for some reason. Maybe it's social, maybe it's emotional, or maybe the work that they're being given has no meaning for them. I mean, a lot of the stuff that we've been getting from our schools is like, I can't force my kid to do this worksheet. Do you want to do that worksheet? Does that sound interesting or fun to you at any level? So we love self-directed learning, and I think it's a great way to motivate kids. Yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, and I guess there's just a follow-up on that. With
Sure.
the transition, like if you have a child or there's a child who's typically been in the standard public education system, have you, is there any, like the transition to this self-directed approach,
Yes.
do you find if there's any difficulty, or do you offer certain types of curriculums or models to help the transition to a more self-directed, self-governed approach?
Yes. Again, an awesome question. So it's much easier for a child to move from self-directed learning to school than it is to move from school to self-directed learning. Almost all the kids I know who did homeschooling and then transitioned to school adjusted really quickly and actually loved school. it is challenging. The older the child gets, especially for teens, to come in an environment where they're used to kind of obeying authority and rules, to an environment where they're free to learn and no one's telling them what to do. I think a lot of people feel uncomfortable when they're in an environment where just, no one's telling them what to do, just tell me what to do, So I think the most important thing that you can do for a child like that is give them time and give them patience. And sometimes children need what we sometimes refer to as a period of deschooling, where they're just getting used to this time period where they don't have any assignments. They're kind of playing around, doing whatever they want, just kind of figuring out and tapping into what they want to do and how they best learn. And so sometimes we do need a little patience from parents to not be afraid of that time period. And I think that's probably the most important thing we can do for kids who are just transitioning away from school, is give them a little bit of a break. But I think the most I've seen is 3 months like that before a kid starts thinking, what do I want to learn? What do I want to do? Look, my peers are learning interesting stuff. I want to get in on that. So that's what I would say for that. I don't know if
can I add something?
Yeah, please.
That I think sometimes we associate self-directed learning with like a lot of fluidity and lack of structure. I know I had that association, and it's just been interesting for us because we very much, well, to some extent we're following like a self-directed approach, but our son also loves structure, and he's a structure kid. So he likes to do things where, he can see that the name of the book is 100 reading lessons, and he likes to, know quantitatively where is he in that 100 and check things off the box. And those are the kinds of things he gravitates towards. So it's just, I think it's helpful to remember, like, self-directed can actually end up looking very structured depending on a kid's preferences and learning style.
Yeah, that is such a great point. And there's a very large portion of children who love worksheets, and we have lots of fun worksheets for them to do, and really love that kind of system of, you finished this, great job, move on to the next one, and making lists, and really seeing how their own progress is progressing in a very methodical way.
When I
jump in really
when
quick.
I was oh, sorry. Say something?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, either Alexis, did you want to add anything to that?
I was going to say, I think part of the beauty of programming like this is this idea, I love how Tara was talking about her kids and figuring out, like, what kind of child, like, what kind of learner is my child? Like, how do they learn best? Like, what works for them? What kind of program works? More structure, less structure? And I think in doing that and in jumping into this idea is building parent confidence. I think a lot of parents teach their children really naturally. I mean, I think you don't notice you're doing it because you just do it, right? You're meeting your child's needs. You know what works for them and what doesn't. And I think at some point we kind of give our child's education to these external systems, and we don't get a choice anymore about what works for them and what doesn't. And the really beauty of this is building parent confidence to know what your child needs. And when you do that, our children are feeling confident in their interests are important, and they can really learn from that. And I think about what that means for them as adults, and it gives me such hope for the future of these really innovative, confident people who find learning in whatever they're passionate about. And that's what I want for my children, is for them to be able to be passionate, for them to be able to follow their interests and really have a fulfilling educational experience and educational life and life as an adult. So it's just, I love this idea of being able to figure out what your child needs and a system that supports parents in doing that.
Yeah, and just to add to that, there's some children thrive on schedules. And the first question a lot of parents ask me is, can you give me a daily schedule for my child? And the reason that we don't do that is because every child learns differently. There's some children who love schedules. They want every single minute of their day planned, and that gives them, they love it, and it gives them confidence. there are other kids who just do amazingly well and they can go into the library and read all day, and they're gonna really thrive that way. So if your child needs a schedule, they'll get a schedule. The other thing is that we've done a lot of research on homeschoolers and what seems to work and what doesn't. And there's not been as much, real testing to kind of be able to give great results about homeschooling, but we find in general is that homeschoolings tend to perform a bit better than their peers at school with absolutely no controls. But children that have a little bit of structure in the day do much better across the board. And so that's why in this program, we've tried to combine structured time and unstructured time to help them really optimize learning outcomes. Akio, did you want to add something?
Yeah, just regarding your question about transitioning to self-directed learning, Michael.
Great.
When I was transitioning from schooling to self-directed learning as a teenager, I did that with the help of an organization called North Star. And the pattern that we would see at North Star among kids who were moving from schooling to self-directed learning was, as Manisha said, there would be a period of a few months, 3 months, sometimes even up to a year, where the child would indulge themselves and not do much. But after a few months, their innate curiosity and desire to learn would kick in, and then that's when they would start flourishing in a self-directed learning environment. So it's a little bit of a leap of faith for the parent for those first few months, but this was the pattern that we saw happen over and over with everyone who went through this program.
Fantastic. And Sarah has a wonderful question, not silly at all. How does this look to colleges, and do I have to report to the state? So you do have to register as a homeschooler in your state if you want to do the Modulo program. I also want to say that Modulo can be a replacement or a supplement to school. If you want to do school and Modulo, that's perfectly great too. But if you are going to register as a homeschooler, if you are going to do it as a homeschooler and not be registered in a school, you do need to register as a homeschooler. In terms of college, more and more families, more and more colleges are getting excited about homeschoolers because they tend to be really self-directed learners. So they really take advantage of everything that a university has to offer. And they've also generally done a lot of really cool projects, building robots and putting on plays. So I can send you some material after this. We have some on our website too, but there's a lot. Harvard is really excited about homeschoolers, Berkeley, college admissions counselors. In terms of just getting into college, there's a couple of routes you can take. There are ways to get a formal high school diploma, but you can also get a GED. And we're also working on building portfolio for your students, so they're really empowered to get into great colleges when they finish the program. So basically, in a nutshell, colleges are super excited about homeschoolers. If you have an older child, I can kind of walk you through how you do the GED or even start getting college credits now. But does that answer your question, Sarah? Hopefully. Kirsten, go ahead.
Thank you. So my kids are 9 and 11, and we plan to keep them enrolled in their regular school, but do 100% virtual online for this year. And one of my, of course, worries is that it will be like it was this last spring, where it was, very much less learning than they were normally having in school. But I also appreciated what you said earlier, that a lot of their school time is actually spent self-directed anyways, because the teacher is having to teach to certain groups at certain times, et cetera. So what we're really looking for is something that is supplemental to what they're currently getting. And what I like what you're saying is actually the self-directedness to this and how they in particular learn. Is this something that matches with what it is that I'm looking for, kind of in addition to their program that they'll be having for this next year?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that, I think you could kind of summarize our program as a social, academic, emotional support system for parents. So whatever you're not getting in school that you feel you need more of, we can support you with that. And we don't want to load more homework onto your kids. Right. So, maybe you're already learning enough math and reading, but you're really sad that your child is not getting a more inclusive approach to history that includes women voices and voices of color. And that's something we can offer them. Maybe your kid is just so passionate and wants to be the next astronaut, and we can get them started on their physics lessons and whatnot. So And then in terms of the social interaction, that's really up to you as well. If you feel like they're getting meaningful social connections in their school, that's great. But we can also get them in a group where they're engaging outside of school hours. So it can absolutely be a supplement.
Okay, great. And then I have one add-on question to that, just because of something else you said, and and then I can let someone else go. So you talked about for this program to be effective that you really need a stay-at-home parent, which neither of us are at all. But both of us are working from home for the next year. And we already have been saying we're going to carve out at least an hour of every day for being with the kids and their learning, et cetera. But is that going to work?
That is plenty. An hour a day is plenty. I will say it with the caveat that I think it's probably realistic to expect that one person can work full time and one person get in like 2 or 3 hours a day of work. I think that without a caregiver, it's going to be hard for you to get more than that done, unless your children are super independent. And I can talk to you about your individual situation. Yes, and their siblings, right, so they can kind of engage each other. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's kind of what I've seen across the board. I mean, Tara and her husband work full time and are really busy entrepreneurs. And so that's, I don't know, Tara, if you want to speak to that at all.
Sure. I mean, we do have we have a professional caregiver helping us though. So, but we do all of the formal education. But I think, I mean, it's going to be different if your kids are, what did you say, 9 and 12?
9 and 11, they're old.
Yeah, if they're 9 and 11, they can read on their own. You can play with each other, and they're going to have the schedule. They're going to have to spend a lot of time doing schoolwork. So I don't think that doesn't sound impossible to me.
And probably even if they already have schoolwork, I mean, I would say if they're not going to school, I would recommend that maybe you give them a reading lesson or a math lesson, and your partner gives them a reading or a math lesson. But since they are going to school, you don't really even need that. Most of the time you'd spend with them would just be really engaging with them in conversation and talking to them what they're learning and what they're doing. You don't really need to add on to that.
Great. Well, thank you very much. That's helpful.
You're so welcome. So I really like to end things on time. But so if anyone needs to go, they're welcome to go. I just so appreciate you all coming here today. I know you've come for a variety of reasons. Some of you are concerned about health returning to school. Some of you are just really excited about homeschooling. Some of you are concerned about the way social distancing policies are putting in place. But I really appreciate you all being here today. And I want you to know that regardless of whether or not you choose to do this program, we are here to support you. We really want to help you in this process. And we know that parents need a lot of help. So I think you all have my email, and just please don't hesitate to reach out if there's anything you need. We're also starting our first cohort next week. So we'll give you some more information about that. This is a year-round program, and we'd love for you to try it out if you're interested. And so again, I'll just stay on. Anyone who needs to go can go, and I'll just be here to answer any questions that you might have. And special thanks also, just wanted to thank our teachers and Tara for coming here and talking about her experience as a parent. It's been really helpful to have your voice. So thanks so much, everybody. Great. So any more questions?
I have a question.
Yes, wonderful.
Is it like Zoom links? Is it a website? How do you technically get on?
Great question. So we're going to be using Zoom and Slack. So for the teacher meetups, those will be through Zoom. For the class meetups, those will be through Zoom. Sometimes we'll have breakout sessions. And then for the Slack group also has a video component. So if your kids want to connect with other children, they can do that through Slack or through Zoom. But Slack will be the place where we'll start interest groups as well and have some conversations online too.
So what kind of technology would you suggest? Like, is an iPad enough, or?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Even a phone is enough. And I do want to say also one thing that we found through school closures is one of the biggest issues of families is, I mean, it's not an issue of anyone here today, is having computers, iPads, iPhones. So If you need help getting one, we have connections with a lot of great organizations that either donate or sell recycled devices, so we can help with that too.
I have another question, but I want to wait.
Please, yeah. This is question and answer time. So if anyone hasn't spoken and have a burning question.
I guess I have a
Hi, Jeremy.
more of a big picture question, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
Feel free to take it offline if that's better. So our daughter is nearly 5, and we're both full-time from home workers. And I've heard from quite a lot of people the same kind of thing that we heard from you earlier around, kids can't be in a Zoom call or whatever for more than 30 or 40 minutes. And a lot of the things we've heard from, therefore, are structured like you're describing around like having quite a high level of parental involvement. But our daughter and a lot of our friends aren't like that. Our daughter is very happy to be on a Zoom call with her best friend for 2 hours. She does it every day. And she's on a Zoom call with her nanny for 2 hours every day. And, she had a lot of stuff with her Montessori, which is now unfortunately wound down, where they had like all the kids chatting. And I'm just wondering if there's any flexibility to think about things that might fit in with her better, because we really want her to have more of a social life. And at the moment, that can't be physical, and we'd love to have more like an hour or 2 a day where she can like chat online with the same group of kids of her kind of age, do some loose activities together, that social kind of stuff.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jeremy. So first of all, there's a lot of different dimensions to that. Firstly, like everything in our program is flexible. Like, as I said before, like my biggest beef with the education system is that it never changes. So we're built to evolve. So if your daughter's group wants to see each other all the time, all day long, let's do it. There's no reason not to. Just in terms of, and I want Alexis to speak to this because she's really the expert in early childhood education and Zoom, but we've also found, I just spoke to another friend whose son spends like 2 or 3 hours online with his tutor every day. So one-on-one interactions online are quite different often than in a group of 10 children. And I think there is a place and an importance to getting together in groups of 10 children, but children can kind of start to tune out when the group is that large, but certainly one-on-one sessions can be much longer and really great. I have some questions about, how much time it would be healthy for your child just to spend alone without any connection. And I don't know, Deb, do you want to kind of address that a little bit? Just kind of the combination of like parents being there versus not being there with the young child.
It's not alone, of course, right? Because she's popping in and out to see us.
Right. Yeah.
And of course she's chatting all the time.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say before Deb jumps in that the thing that worked particularly well was through the Montessori thing was they did have like an hour a day where she was with the same 3 other kids. And that was quite a nice size because they, knew each other pretty well and they could kind of have conversations while they drew and stuff. So that was kind of nice for her.
That's great. We should try it. Let's try it and see how it goes. I think we really want to innovate in the online social connection space. So yeah, actually, Alexis, you've seen every kind of early childhood Zoom experience. Did you have anything you wanted to chime in about?
Yeah, I think, just seeing the various ways that we're engaging children online, one-on-ones with teachers, small groups kind of facilitated by teachers. I also have a 4.5-year-old who's gone through this whole experience recently too. So I've had a lot of practice from a parent perspective, seeing like what's working for individual children. And I personally like this idea, even for younger children, where you have like groups where you're doing stuff, right? So maybe you have like an afternoon after, rest time where you're building Legos, right? And you're having an activity that's kind of planned and you're doing kind of a shared activity. I found it takes children a little while to kind of settle into that, but once they're into it, they are just chatting in the way that children really do in a classroom. You know, they're working, even though they're not physically collaborating, just building stuff, sharing with each other. And that is really meeting this need of this social interaction that children are really lacking right now. So even pairing people up based on interest, you know, you have a drawing group, and maybe in the beginning they are more not facilitated, I want to say like supported by an adult. And then as the children get more accustomed to that, being able to have it be a little more independent, because some children really like that. They really want that. And other children, you know, that does not work for them. Like being outside is really what they need to be doing. So I think as this evolves, figuring out what particular children need and just structuring things to be able to meet those needs, whether it be small groups. I like the idea of having these cohorts where children are connecting with the same people over and over again, because it does take longer to create connections virtually than it does in person, because a lot of the way that young children interact with each other is physical, right? Like when kids are really young, you see them running and pushing each other because they're learning how to get involved in play and they're learning those social pragmatics. And so we have to find a way to artificially facilitate that for children. But once we do, and once children adapt to this kind of learning, because I see my 20-month-old almost adapt to this virtual learning quicker than my 4.5-year-old has. You know, he plays, he goes on the older ones, you know, circle time and does like peekaboo with the people who are on there. So it's fascinating. Children learn really, really quickly, and especially if we can tap into their interests with their peers, with activities that they're doing, I think we're going to really be able to find a way to meet the individual needs of the children in the program.
I know in our school where I work as a preschool teacher, when we did Zoom, like we did it as a large classroom, but you know, we had been together with the kids, my co-teacher and I, you know, during you know, the year. But my director was like, you know, I think we should have some, she called them play dates with kids in the classroom. And it would just be like a couple of kids or 3 kids. And it was really sweet. And the teacher and I would just kind of hang out there with them. And sometimes we'd have something, we always had something planned for them to do. Now, whether it went there was a different thing, you know, but it was really, I thought it was really nice for them. And it was nice for us just to be able to give them that special time.
Yeah, that's great. And I think I just wanted to add to what you're saying is kind of when we do this onboarding, we're really trying to figure out what your child needs and create a program that works for them. So the twice a week meetups is kind of a skeleton for the program, but if what your daughter really needs is daily sessions and your family, you know, I think it would be really wonderful to get that going. And I think that as we start the meetups, a lot of different social groups will evolve from that either. So, you know, as I said, like what we're not is childcare. What we're not is like trying to entertain your kids for a couple, you know, hours. But in terms of providing, you know, tons of social interaction, daily meetings, more teacher support, we're all for that. And I love that you're already bringing great ideas to the table, because we really want parents to be involved in helping to create this and make it wonderful for you and for other families. Cool. And Laura, I think, has been waiting to ask a question for a while.
I'm wondering how you go about signing up.
Oh, yes, wonderful.
Told us what it was, but if we want to sign up, what's the process? And is that, my question's not urgent. You could tell me afterwards or in an email or.
No, it's a great question. So our website is modulo.app. There's a link to enroll, and you can choose your monthly subscription plan. So we have a couple different options available. And as soon as you sign up, we'll find a time to chat with you and your children and start recommending the curriculum, get you set up in a group, and then you're off to the races. And you can start anytime. Alexis and I are getting a cohort going next week, which we'll email you about. And we'd really love if some of you wanted to participate in that one.
You mentioned a couple of different options to sign up for. What are the options?
So the kind of full enchilada is the the one-on-one teacher check-ins and progress reports, the social interaction online, and the personalized curriculum. But if you just want to do the personalized curriculum, that's an option. And in that case, we would just help you figure out curriculum for your child and check in with you and adjust it as necessary. And then you can also just do the social component without the teacher check-ins, and then, or you can do all three. And if there's some other combination of that that you'd like to do, I'd love to hear it, and we can work something out for you.
Okay. Diana had a question. Is this recording going to be available to everybody?
Hi, darling. Yes, it is. We recorded it, and thank you so much. We'll send it to everybody who participated as well.
We hit the record button a little late into the start because I noticed that it was on pause. So I think the first few minutes were lost, but I think we've got the bulk of it.
Thank you so much, Deb. Great. Wonderful. Anything else that anyone wants to add or ask? Super. Well, I emailed you all and I'm available, and I'm looking forward to continuing this conversation. And thank you so much again for being here today. Be well, everyone.
Be well. Stay safe out there.